In these times of uncertainty, it's all the more important that we keep collaborating, informing, and inspiring each other, so that we can be smarter and better tomorrow. Welcome to the Pak uit de Zwijger livecast.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us for our SheSays Amsterdam Halloween Special. What, this old thing? Casual Thursday. We are talking frightful fuck-ups today. We're talking about what we can learn from all those massive mistakes and even the little ones that we make along the way, along the bumpy road to success. And we've got 5 fantastic women to talk to us and to share their horror stories. My name is Kerry Finch, and I'm the founding partner at a communications consultancy called Future Factor. And we have offices here in Amsterdam, we're in London, and we're also in Los Angeles. I'm also proud to be the lead insurgent for SheSays Amsterdam. Now, SheSays is a global award-winning organisation. If you don't know it, take a look online, get involved. We're one of about 30 or more chapters around the world, and we offer mentoring, consultancy, counsel, advice, education, and what's the point? More women at the top. It's as simple as that. Now, everybody's welcome to our events, either online or in person. Fewer of those these days. But it's all about women's voices, and that's what we're going to be concentrating later on this very evening. Now, be sure to follow us on social. We want you part of the conversation. You can join us on Instagram on SheSays AMS, SheSays Amsterdam. You can join us on Facebook, SheSays Amsterdam. But tonight, we'd love you to be asking your questions directly through the Q&A channel. We want you to get involved and you to be part of the conversation. So please do not delay. Ask your questions straight away of our fabulous speakers, and I'll try and get to as many of them as I can this very evening. Now then, we have brave speakers, we have bold speakers, we have beautiful speakers. And we, as I said, are going to be sharing those frightful fuck-ups. And who are we talking to this evening? We're going to be talking to Raja Falgata on my left here. She's a media entrepreneur, and she's the founder of a production facility called Mr. and Mrs. Oasis. She also has the proud honour of being the first woman of colour anchoring a news channel, a news show on Dutch national TV. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It
was a while ago.
It was a while ago, but it needed to be a while ago.
Thank you so much, Kerry,
it's
for the
always a
invitation.
massive moment in history. So congratulations.
Thank you.
We also have Maartje Weijers, who is head of culture at Boomerang Agency. I hope every single one of those folks at Boomerang is watching this evening. You know who you are out there. I'll be checking. I will be checking. And you're also an ambassador for a non-profit organisation called Unboxed, which is about raising awareness of equality, diversity and freedom for under 18-year-olds.
Yes.
So that's a brilliant thing to be doing, is to be a mentor and ambassador. It's always good. And thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to your horrific story. And Shay Harty here also in the studio, founder of Empower Amsterdam. Now, this is what you do these days. You're a business coach for entrepreneurs, but you're also, well, frankly, a double degree in advertising and then also a doctorate in law. So you're covering all those bases and you're outsmarting all of us this evening. Thank you for bringing your smarts. On Zoom, good day, the world of Zoom. Good day to you on the screen. Sorry, I nearly knocked my casual Thursday hat there. On Zoom from the world of London, we have Rachel Keane, and she's a recruiter of many years for the sector for analytics and data. So thanks for joining us. And you're also the co-founder for Women in Data in the UK, which is quite the organisation. It's hugely successful over there in in the world of London and further afield. And you also are a mentor for young people and school children as well. And it's about, getting in there early for your early stages of understanding what kind of a career you might want to have. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Zoom friend. And also Kika Douglas is joining us. Kika, why didn't you wear any makeup? I just don't understand it.
No,
Kika is joining us, and she's the Executive Creative Director at Dentsu Actung. And again, good day, people out there at Dentsu Actung World. We expect you all to be asking questions through the power of Zoom Q&A. And Kika's actually in Spain at the moment, but is a citizen of the world. Kika was born in Texas, grew up in Spain, now lives in Amsterdam, and has been living in many other countries and cities around the world, and currently is, frankly, a very new mum. So congratulations to the bouncing baby and you. We have a lot to get through. Let's get on with our stories. And we will be brushing off some of these stories from the cobwebbed corners of our memory. Some of them are older, some of them are very, very fresh. Some of them are funny. Some of them are horribly scary, and some of them are, frankly, bold and beautiful. Raja, we're going to be coming to you first.
Yes.
Are you ready?
I'm not ready.
You need to run to the podium, girl.
I will.
She's off. Now, Raja has a story which she tells me she hasn't even shared with anybody since it happened, because it was really pretty scarring. And I do feel for her, and I do understand. So, get your questions ready. It involves royalty. So stand up and be counted and brush off your smart suit. Raja, over to you.
Thank you, Kerry. Yeah, so this is actually the first time I'm speaking about this moment in time for me. As Kerry was saying, I was one of the first women of color on television. I worked in around media for 20 years. And one of the nice perks was to be asked frequently to moderate events, discussions, several events throughout the years. So I really had fun doing it. I like the interaction with the audience, asking the questions as a journalist, of course, and especially as a feminist. I liked moderating events surrounding feminism and position of women in our society, and especially women of color. So one of those moments is a bit traumatic, and I think every woman can relate, standing on stage, being nervous. I'm quite nervous now because I'm speaking about this for the first time, but I think it's necessary to heal this trauma, but also maybe other women can be, inspired in a way. We're all human and we make mistakes. There was one event around International Women's Day, I think 10 years ago. I was asked to moderate a huge event surrounding women and empowering of women of color. This event was around 1,500 women from all different kinds of backgrounds, level, different kind of, women organizations joining in for this massive event. And I was asked to host this evening as a moderator. So I was the linking pin between all of these organizations and all these speakers on stage. It was a huge gig. At the last moment, and of course I was prepared because I always prepare. That's what you do. You're a professional. You read, you look people up, you do your research, of course. But at the last moment, there was a message that Princess Maxima was joining. So, of course, that put a different light on that evening because the Queen was going to be there. And even though I was prepared, I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that I would see the Queen for the first time and I would be hosting this event in front of 1,500 women and her, the Queen, on the first row. So I grabbed myself up, prepared as I was intellectually. I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared emotionally. So during this moment on stage and doing every moment step for step, suddenly I lost control of my moderation. I lost the control of everything, basically. I couldn't wrap my mind around, and I couldn't recover from the anxiety, the nervousness. I just blacked out, and I didn't actually know what I was doing. In front of 1,500 women and the Queen of the Netherlands, if there was a hole in the ground, I would obviously, dive into it, but I had to go through this. And I will never forget a moment that during the coffee break, all of a sudden this lady come up out of nowhere. I didn't know her. She tapped me on the back and she looked at me and she almost yelled, "Take charge. Get over yourself, get over your nerves, be director of this stage. We need you." And she woke me up like a fresh, a bucket of ice cold water. So part 2 was less horrendous. And as you can see, I have some pictures that I was just standing behind Maxima. I just didn't know what to do. So I failed big time. One of the biggest gigs in my life as a professional. And actually it traumatized me a little bit because after that I didn't went on stage as a moderator for I think almost a year because I was too afraid to, fuck it up again. But I promised myself one thing, that I would never, because that feeling as a professional, and I'm a professional, I've been doing this for 20 years, I know what I'm doing, I promised myself I will never feel this feeling again. I don't want to, I don't need to, and I'm gonna work through that. So basically, I just picked myself up. And the first gig I said yes to was a big event as well. I just thought, I might as well just jump on again and face this insecurity and this fear and just do it and be prepared. And no matter who's sitting front row, the Queen, the King, the President, I don't know, Madonna, you shouldn't care. Just focus on your message and focus on your professionalism and deliver. So basically, that's my mindset. After that, I just strengthened myself by having this standard for myself. I would never have that feeling again. So Maxima, she gave me a pretty hard lesson, and I will always thank her for that, because she reminded me I have to stay in my power. I don't have to be afraid of that power and use it. Thank you so much.
Come and join us. Come back and join us. I don't know if anybody can take me seriously on my casual Thursday hat, but I'm going to pose some questions. That was a fabulous story. Thank you for holding it together, even by telling, because I can tell it's bringing back a little bit of the trauma.
Like I said, it was a bit of a trauma.
I can feel it, because something similar has happened to me in my past. How did you overcome the trauma immediately? When something similar happened to me, I went back home, sweating, climbed into bed, fully clothed, and pulled the cover actually over my head like they do in movies. I actually did that. How did you overcome it?
I really don't remember how I did overcome at that moment, that specific day.
Yeah.
I just felt really insecure and really, I was mad at myself, why did I let this happen to me? I did it all by myself. I wasn't in control. So I was beating myself up a little bit for a couple of months. And after that, I came out stronger, to be honest. After that, nothing could throw me off again.
Nothing knocks you over.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel like the worst has already happened.
Exactly. It couldn't be worse than that moment in time,
I'm sure we've all been there at one point on stages. And there's a question that's come in. Thank you for sending your questions. Please do keep them coming. We're loving them. How did you get over, Roger? How did you get over the fear of the moderating? I think you've just told us, but also, what advice would you give to people going up on stage? You know, what is the first trick that you would say this is super important to remember?
Well, always prepare yourself, of course. I mean, that's more than half of your work. Know the people who you're talking to and believe in your strength, and don't be afraid to claim your power. For me, meditation helped a lot before I went on a stage. I always meditate. I'm asthmatic, actually. I just had this puffer before every gig. I do that because if you're nervous, my breath tends to go up in here. So I do breathing exercises, I meditate, I really focus. And in time, I really have this super focus mindset, So, and I think if you learn to super focus and hyper focus, that's when you know you're in charge and in power.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but you have to train it. Like your body going to the gym and train, you have to train your mind as well. It's a muscle. And I did train it for, and I think I become stronger because of that.
And Antoinette, I think I know who you are, Antoinette.
Yeah.
I know there are many Antoinettes in the world, but I'm going to assume it's the one I know.
Yeah.
She asks, is it a good trick to have a trusted person on hand to do the wake up, to wake you up and shake you back into who you are?
For sure, because one time I remember I had a slightly different experience, not that big, but I was on stage with, on theater. I did theater for a couple of months, and my co-actor, we were rehearsing for a live event, and I was nervous because it was the first time on stage with theater, and she basically slapped me in the face.
Actually
slapped me in the face, and that woke me.
What do you do with social distancing? Do you just do some kind of a stage slap?
In this case, I really don't know. But back in those days, it was not this hard slap.
Oh, really?
No,
a wasted slap.
It was half wasted, but it woke me up.
Okay, good.
It woke me up.
So it did the job.
But what the question that Antoinette is asking, of course, is always, nice and good to have somebody in your inner circle who can really tell you the what's what.
Yeah.
And be honest about things, and give you that honest
Positive feedback.
Exactly. Constructive
feedback
as well.
rather.
Because I can take
feedback,
critical feedback as well, because it makes you better.
Yeah.
But it's nice. And I have that with friends. I have that with my husband. I have a brutally honest mother. So, I'm good.
Wow. Mothers can be tricky, and to have a brutally honest. Does anybody else around this table
also
have a
brutally honest mom?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's how you become successful.
Exactly.
Yeah? Well,
exactly.
mothers have a lot to teach their children, that's for sure.
So that's my story, Kerry.
Thank you so much. We've got many, many more questions which have come in. Thank you for sending them in. We may get back to them at the end. Please keep them coming for all our speakers. We're going to go over to the world of Zoom. Hola, chiquita. Hola. Thank you for joining us from Spainland. Kika, you've got a story which is all about fire in the belly, and it almost got you fired. Over to you, Kika.
It did. Thank you. Well, my story is of my very early days of my career. Actually, I think my first job, I was an intern at JWT, and that's where this story takes place. So I made a little presentation so you wouldn't have to be looking at my face all the time because of the makeup. But if you go on, so I've named it the Email Massacre. And if you go on to the next slide, I can tell you a little bit when it happened. It was in Madrid, and it was 2010. So I think that was almost the end of the golden years of advertising, when agencies had money to take the whole agency to Cannes and to buy rosé and pay hotels for everyone. So in that context, on the next slide, we had this open brief for the whole agency, which was, let's come up with a cool T-shirt idea that we can all wear to Cannes and stand out. And my intern partner and I said, well, maybe instead of doing just the T-shirt, we can do something more fun. And the idea, was to do a campaign for the small businesses in our neighborhood. And I didn't really understand why then, but everybody got super excited. And when I say everybody, I mean all the really important people in the JWT network beyond our office. So we were a bit overwhelmed. And well, on the next slide, you can see that they got so excited that, can you go to the next one, please? To the next slide, that they left the interns out. At a certain point, they started developing the idea and they just sort of eliminated us from the project. And well, I was one of the interns. So you can imagine my emotional timeline in that moment was, first I was really saying, what the fuck? Why is this happening? How is this even possible? Then I started getting pissed and then I was super mad. So because it was very unfair. And I decided to do something about it. So if you go on to the next one, what I decided to do was to send an email that went something like this. I think I barely remember what I wrote, but it was something along the lines of, Kay and I, Kay was my other partner, are really happy that everybody is super enthusiastic about our idea, but we think it's pretty unfair. You've made the decision of, well, kicking us out, basically. And, well, we also have a valid POV that we could bring to this idea. So, well, I wrote all my feelings in there and I sent it to everybody. I sent it to my entire JWT Madrid office. I sent it to the president of JWT Spain, to the CCO. I don't know. I just copied everybody that I knew had an important role in JWT and had somehow been involved in the idea. And yeah, that was basically what happened in the JWT network after my email. So if you, I think 5 minutes after my email, we still had these phones on our desks, like these dial-in phones that were connected to the wall. And if you go on to the next slide, my basically the general manager called me and said, "You're fired." I mean, we're not even going to discuss what you did. But luckily, 10 minutes after that, my ECD, onto the next one, who I guess still saw something in me to keep me in there, fought for me and said, "Okay, you're not fired, but we're going to talk about what you did because there's other ways of doing this." So if you go on to the next one, the fun facts about this was that, well, everybody got super excited about the idea, thinking we were going to win a lot of lions, and we didn't win any. But we did win our dignity back as interns, and I think that's the most important lesson. And if you go on to the last slide, I think I chose this story. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Because I think it was a really important lesson for me in my career. Because of two things. One was when you do something because you believe it's right, even if you don't do it in the right way, it normally ends up well. And I've sort of followed that belief throughout my career. It wasn't always comfortable and it didn't always work out at first, but in the end, the result was good. And I think it's also an important story because as a woman and as a creative, to try to make yourself visible and what you do and is very important and is very hard. And especially a few years ago when, Me Too didn't exist and the conversation around gender inequality didn't exist. And it was really tough for women to be taken into account. It still is, but back then it was much harder. So I really learned that you have to fight to make yourself visible and for people to see what you add. And that's a bit the moral of my story. So thank you for letting me share it here.
Kika, thank you so much for sharing. Did the interns get to go to Cannes?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, thank goodness. And were they originally invited to Cannes?
We actually were, yeah, okay. Surprisingly.
Okay, just checking, just making sure. You know what it's like. So, I would love to see that email because the fact that you got immediately fired by somebody because you wrote an email, does make me question whether somebody would have been fired if that somebody had been a guy, and also. it didn't really hurt to keep you, considering you're an intern, so you were probably on 5 shekels and a bale of hay a week in terms of payment, and you probably were allowed to sleep under your desk. Yeah, exactly.
300 euros a month, I think, was my salary.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, what would you have told yourself, you know, the knowledge that you have now, where you are in your career now, what would you have told an intern that had done the same thing? How would you advise your own interns today?
Well, I think one important distinction to make is the first thing I would have told them is to go and talk to the person they thought could help them solve that problem instead of sending a massive email with a bunch of people in it. And I think, especially because written words can lose the context of the expression and the voice and the person. So they always can come across more aggressive or with a different intention that is behind them. And also it's just, we're still people and humans, and it's just, you never know where a conversation can take you. So I would have advised them to fight for it in the same way, but just do it differently, probably just going up to that person and saying why they were feeling left out and why it was wrong.
And the T-shirt, what would you put on a T-shirt these days?
Well, to be honest, I would put, it's very politically incorrect for me to say this, but I don't like advertising festivals because I always go because it's good. I go a little bit forced because it's good for my career, but it's not a place I like to go to. So that's actually, it would say, I don't want to be here.
Controversial. Controversial words there from the ECD of Dentsu Achtung, award-winning agency, if I remember rightly. Kika, thank you so much for your share. A spooky horror story, but it had a good ending in the end. So congratulations for not getting fired and for learning the lesson. Back to the studio now, people. Let's hear from Shay Harty. And Shay's story is poignant, it's somewhat painful, it's a massive learn, and it's one that anybody who has a business partner or who is in business and trying to run their own company can relate to in one way or another. Shay, take it away.
So this story was a few years ago when I was starting out with my entrepreneurial journey. I'd already made that transition from employee to contractor, and now I was ready to start my own business. I had already started that year. I'd already started my nonprofit with two other co-founders, and it was going really well. So I had another business idea that I wanted to explore, but I felt like I needed another partner again. And maybe it was a little bit out of fear or uncertainty, but I felt like I didn't want to do it by myself. So I approached an ex-colleague of mine, and I said, hey, I have this idea. I know you're not working right now. What do you think? She wasn't really sold at first, and eventually I did talk her into doing it. One of the things I should have recognized from the beginning is that we were at different points in our entrepreneurial journey. She just started out, and I was several years ahead of her. But in my mind, I thought, but that's okay. She can learn from my mistakes, and we could speed up her journey, and we'll be on the same track. Fast forward, and we're working together. We're together every day. Every day, we're like stuck together. Even when we're not together, we're calling each other. We just spent every moment together, thinking about our plans, doing stuff, testing things, talking it through. We made some very unwise decisions about purchasing websites and talking to people, but most of the time, I always felt that that the decisions we were making in terms of buying the expensive website were wrong. And I thought, I don't want to rock the boat because I really want her to enjoy this. And maybe I shouldn't say how I really feel, and we'll go along with what she wants, and it'll be okay. And I did that several times through our partnership. She ended up looking for clients in another country because she thought that, hey, this might be a great opportunity if I go and look for clients in the Caribbean. And I thought, why don't we look for clients here in the Netherlands first? And then we can go to another country and explore that. That's kind of the differing views that we had. But still, I thought we could make this work. We ended up having our fight, our first and only fight, and I thought, still, we can make this work. Because I know that this idea that I have is really great, and I think that she and I could be really great together. We're together all the time. We click. That's how I felt. She didn't see it the same way. She said, well, if we're going to fight about this, then I don't think we should be business partners. And we split up, and she took the company, and I was very hurt by it. Probably a little bitter and petty, but that's how I felt at the time. The thing that I really took out of that, I actually learned a lot from it about myself. I can't rush anyone else's journey, their life journey. I can't get you to learn things faster. You have to learn it in your own way. Everyone has to learn it in their own way, and I needed to respect that. I needed to also own my own voice. When I don't believe in something, I shouldn't be afraid that, oh no, this is going to cause a rift between us, and I don't want that. I should never feel afraid to say what I feel, give my opinion, and be afraid of the consequences. I mean, it was partly my business. I should be able to say that. Since then, I still have business partners. Like I said, I had 2 co-founders with my nonprofit, which is now a social enterprise, so that's gone really well. And I've taken what I've learned working with her into other partnerships. I also have another partnership with another woman, the Women in Tech Regatta, and we've been together for 3 years. So it's not that partnerships don't work. It's about giving people the room to be who they are, but not diminishing who I am to make them feel comfortable.
Shay, thank you so much for sharing your story. Come back and join us at the table. I'm sure that folks out there in the world of Zoom, please do keep your questions coming. I'm sorry if I don't get round to all of them, but we will certainly continue to ask the questions. So keep them coming and don't let the hat put you off. Shay, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Partnerships can be difficult, and setting up your own company, as Raja will know, as I know, as Rachel understands, it's complicated and it's difficult, and you have to wear many, many different hats. They don't always fit you, and they don't always fit you at the right time. Yours looks fabulous.
Thank you.
But you understand the point I'm making. So what would you recommend that younger entrepreneurs, thinking about starting their businesses today, what should they think about when starting a business? What's important?
I think the most important thing is when you have your own idea, that you own it, that you do the research yourself, that you don't let fear. I'm a big proponent of embracing fear. I think there's nothing wrong with being afraid. I just think that when you're afraid, don't let it stop you. Let it be just another emotion along the way of having emotions. And I think when you're starting out with your business, there are so many fears that they kind of trap you, or they can't trap you. So just push past the fear and do it anyway. There's so many things that are going to go wrong and so many things that are going to go right. And just staying in one place because you're afraid to move forward just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. I think you'd chime with that as well, Raja.
Yeah, it resonates as well. Like, I've been doing partnership with my husband. I'm married to my business partner. So we have obviously a good partnership. Otherwise, we couldn't handle 10 years of, media entrepreneurship. But on the other hand, you always work with other people as well. And like you said, Kerry, in your introduction, it's just like a marriage.
It is a marriage.
So you have to learn each other's perks, and you have to try to balance things out. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And you move on and learn from it. And in my experience,
Absolutely. Sorry to interrupt. What I was going to say was, I think what is complicated sometimes is that we see conflict as something wrong.
To avoid, yes.
And actually it isn't.
No,
conflict can be incredibly innovative, and it can be very refreshing, and it can be just required. And sometimes dirty laundry needs airing. And you just push through it, and it makes you stronger. Actually, it's the conflict that can make you stronger. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think in this particular instance, I wasn't really being myself either, because I actually enjoy conflict, because I come from a family that debates everything all the time. So having conflict, I'm not afraid of. But in that instance, I just wanted it to work so badly that I was willing to diminish who I was because I thought it was for the greater good. We're making something bigger than ourselves.
Why do you think your partnership with your colleagues at the WIT Regatta, the Women in Tech Regatta, what is it about that partnership that's working? What would you recommend that people seek that's working, that you've noticed works for you?
First, always being friends. I think that's important, and knowing each other on a personal level and not just always keeping it at business is one part. But also, you don't need to work together all the time, every day, every minute of the day. Everyone needs to have a little space to go back to their own other lives or other parts of their lives, and communicating and saying, hey, what about this idea? What do you think? And when someone disagrees with you on a constructive level, and they can say, well, because of this, this, and this, or I've tried it before and that didn't work. And instead of just saying, it's my gut feeling, or, give some concrete answers why your decision, why you want to go in that direction.
Yeah. Okay, and Carla, thanks for your questions, Carla. She asked a question of you, Shay. Do you feel that the emotional impact of ending a partnership, a business partnership, is similar to a romantic breakup?
Oh my God, yes. Oh yeah, I think it was, I lost my best friend. We were together every day. And it was like losing a boyfriend or a husband, or you're together. I mean, we knew each other's routines, what we did when we went home, what you eat for breakfast, and then suddenly it's over. And it was over like that. There was no transition out. It was just done. And if you're ever in a relationship with a partner or a spouse or what have you, I think it's more painful when it's just done without any warning than if there was like something leading up to it. Then you can almost plan. And
it's a loss, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a death in its own way. How did you learn to tune into your gut feeling? Because, you've talked before about the importance of instinct, the importance of intuition.
Yeah.
How did you tune into that? Is there something are there tips that you can offer?
That is a hard one, because there's, sometimes you think, oh, I feel it in my gut. And sometimes it's fear. It's not intuition. It's actually you're afraid. And my indicator of when I'm afraid, when I think it's in my gut, I'm asking myself, am I afraid of doing this thing, or am I nervous? And being nervous and being afraid are two different things. Like nervous, like, ooh, this is new.
Nervous
and
is
I don't
excitement.
know. Yeah, it's excitement.
It can help you, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And versus fear is like, what if I fail, so I have to do it? And that for me is the difference in how I can tell for myself. And for other people, I often tell them, like, where does it feel in your body? Because sometimes it's not the gut. Sometimes it's like, a little tingling behind your ear.
Or your toes maybe itch.
Or your toes itch. Or
Who knows?
For everyone,
Who
it's
knows
different.
people?
So wherever you feel your fear, or when, think about those times when you're afraid or when your instinct was right. What did that feel like? And try to remember it so you repeat it over and over again.
Brilliant. All right. Well,
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for that, Shay. Let's go back to the world of Zoom and to the world of the UK. Rachel, you've got a cat on your face. You've got something on your face.
Really? I was just some whiskers.
Casual Thursday.
Absolutely.
Embrace the Casual Thursday. Rachel Keane, you've got a story for us. Please do, Catwoman, take it away.
Thank you very much. So my horror story started quite early on in my life. On leaving school, I was that typical headstrong teenager, and I had to make some choices about my further education. So I was either going to go to sixth form college and study history and English A-level, or I was going to do something completely different, which was at a technical college, which was art and design. My decision was made quite simply by the head of year when he told me that my maths GCSE grade was not looking particularly great. So it was pretty advantageous for me to study and repeat the year. I absolutely hated maths. I couldn't see the relevance at all, and how it could help my future career choices. So I immediately chose the latter, the option of fashion and textiles. I felt absolutely triumphant, no more maths for me. So if I can just show my slide on the screen quickly, if I may. Great. So actually the slide you see here, the picture of me was taken on the 18th of July, 1999. It was the day I graduated from a BA Honours in knitwear design from Nottingham Trent University. I was 22, I had no wrinkles, I had no responsibilities, and I was just about to take over the world, or so I thought. I specialised in beading and embroidery in my final year, and I had my sights set on a job working as a buyer for Karen Millen. Armed with absolute bags of enthusiasm, I started my job search, and I very quickly secured some junior buyer interviews, only to realise very quickly that actually my level of GCSE maths was absolutely not to the mark. So I studied, I crammed, I did everything I could, but it just wasn't good enough, and the results were the same. One word I can use to explain that feeling: crushed. Why hadn't I tried harder in maths? Why hadn't I listened? Why hadn't somebody told me that actually these subjects were going to, affect every career decision that I made going forward? So keen not to look like a failure and to make sure that my degree was worthwhile, I literally applied to every fashion-related job known to man, and I very quickly secured a field sales role. It was actually selling country clothing. So you couldn't have got further away from the delicate and intricate work of Karen Millen. But it was a job. I hadn't failed. I was on the ladder. I absolutely hated this job with a passion. I hated every minute of every hour of every day. And to make things absolutely worse, the chap that I was taking over had done a shocking job of delivery and customer service. So for the first 12 months, I literally just took a crash helmet, put it over my head, an imaginary one, and before I walked into these clients' kind of outlets, and I basically got my head kicked in for 12 months with complaints about, poor delivery, poor customer service, you name it, they complained about it. And I made a decision very quickly that I would only promise going forward on what I could deliver, be very honest about what I couldn't, and always go over and above as much as I could to make sure a service to a client was, the best I could possibly do. And that's a recipe that I've used going forward. Now, I had a bit of a get out of jail card, and God was on my side here, because thankfully, after clocking up 50,000 miles in this job, driving around the UK, I had my driving licence revoked through speeding. It was one of the best days of my life. It was my get out of jail card. Thank Crunchy, I can leave this job. Happy days. And I literally skipped along to the recruitment agency down the road, hoping that they could find me a job. And again, they gave me a job just working for them, which was brilliant. So my career's taken many turns over the last 17 years. Ironically, I've just spent the last 12 placing people in maths-related jobs, which seems a little bit crazy. I've become a mum to my daughter Grace, who's 16. I've become a co-founder of Women and Girls in Data. But the most important lesson I think I've learned along the way, and my biggest fuck up to date, was not realising the relevance of my educational subjects and my future career choices, but also not realising the skills that I possessed. I'm creative. I've got good communication skills, empathy, determination. And whilst they weren't used in fashion or working for Karen Millen, they've done me very well. I've had an interesting career, a successful career, and one I'm very, very proud of. And my dream now is for everybody to take a bit of responsibility to share their stories with young people. It doesn't matter if it's your brother, your sister, your niece, your nephew, your friends, children, your colleagues' children. Young people need to know about these educational journeys and the importance of them and the mistakes that we've made. And also for all of us to remember that, our skills aren't the same as everybody else's. They're valuable, they're unique, and equally we should be really proud of them. So there you go, that's my story. Thank you.
Rachel, thank you so much for that. You're clearly full of passion and you're clearly willing to pay it forward in terms of helping the next generation understand how important a basic education is.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a bit more about the work that you're doing these days in being an ambassador and being an advocate?
Absolutely. So, as you know, we're the co-founders of Women in Data. So that's very much about developing and connecting and engaging women that are currently working in the data industry. So, you know, there's a lot of mentoring, there's a lot of development courses that we run on a daily basis. But equally, one of the things that's closest probably to my heart going forward is really encouraging young people in understanding, particularly within data and analytics, that, you know, it isn't, you can dispel the myth of kind of STEM-related subjects are completely necessary. You don't have to be exceptional at all of these subjects. You can bring your own skills to the table, mix them together, and really carve out a career that, you know, that makes you happy. So that's one of the things that's the most important. And I suppose, you know, being a single mum to my 16-year-old daughter who's just left school here, you know, it's important, the advice that I've given her, and that's been a lot, that she makes decisions that are right for her. And I feel passionate about that with young people across the UK and the globe.
And in terms of, you know, your career to date and your career choice nowadays and what you do, you're clearly brilliant at it. You're at the top of your game. You've been doing it for a long time. You're successful. Fate pushed you in a very different direction. Any regrets?
Do you know, you say that, I mean, you know, I believe everything comes 360. And yeah, for a while, it pushed me in a different direction. But, you know, those skills have been used in lots of different ways. One of the initiatives as part of Women in Data is our role model series, the 20 in Data and Technology scheme. So actually last year saw me organising a fashion shoot and organising collections and photography and videography. So I was absolutely in my element, you know, which is brilliant. And I pulled my daughter along as well for the week for some work experience. But I think, you know, you can be creative in lots of different ways. And I think, you know, when you're young and when you're sort of 22 and you're coming out of uni or further education, you know, you do have that fire in your belly where you're going to rule the world. And you need that. And I think you just need to be very true to yourself, that your skills will, you know, apply to lots of different industries and lots of different circumstances. And you just need to bring yourself to the table. It's important.
And in terms of learning how to trust yourself and learning about following your dreams and following your instincts, are there any tips and tricks you can give us there? What has worked for you?
Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? That's a big question. I think probably what's worked for me is by surrounding myself with, you know, a really good network of friends, colleagues. You know, everybody needs those people that can G you up, that really are, when you're weak, they're strong, and vice versa. People that know you for who you are and what you are and aren't afraid to tell you. But I suppose probably one of my biggest kind of mantras really is when the chips are down, remember, you know, you can build your army, but you are your army. You need to believe in yourself. And that's
brilliant. Yeah, thank you for that. You're getting nods and lots of Yeah, you said it from the studio here. And by the way, thank you for beaming into us from the set of Poltergeist. If a 7-year-old girl in a nightie with very, very long wet hair starts walking down those stairs, I am going to wet my knickers. I just hope there is nobody upstairs in that house right now. Rachel, thank you so much for your story.
Thank you.
Your house is pretty horrific, and I mean that in the nicest way. The nicest way. Let's move on. Let's come back to the studio. Let's hear from Maartje Weijers from Boomerang Agency, who is going to share a story about the trip from hell, the work trip that didn't exactly go to plan. Maartje, take it away.
Thank you, Kerry. Good evening, everyone who's tuning in online. Hello to all of my colleagues and friends who are probably laughing at my Halloween-themed hat. My story is, just as the other stories tonight, mostly about intuition and trusting your gut. But I would like to start with this. I think in this fuck-up, which took me a couple of weeks, it was a very long slow fuck up. There were so many moments where my intuition and my gut were both ringing the doorbell, but I was too busy to pay attention, and that's how this colossal fuck up came to life. So, what happened? I used to work in nightlife. I was a promoter for a couple of big clubs in Amsterdam. I worked a couple of festivals, so I knew my way around partying. And then I switched jobs and I started working in advertising, and I was very happy to find out those people also party. So my job at Boomerang first was brand manager, and then I kind of rolled into starting organizing the company parties and the company trips. Some of you may have been to our infamous garage party. May she rest in peace. And last year, our company was about 120 people big, and we wanted to do something extra fun because it was a challenging year. Everybody worked really hard. We grew quite big in just 1 year. So we figured we are going to go to a nice place abroad. But I told my bosses it would be very nice to be able to participate in this party instead of organizing it. So they said, okay, we'll give you a bigger budget so you can hire this external company to help you with the trip. And I had my first talk with this company, and they convinced me, sure, we are able to handle a group of this size, and we've been to Croatia, we've been to the States, we've been to all of these different beautiful countries with groups twice or 3 times your size, so everything's going to be fine. I even showed them some secret footage from company parties to make sure they were able to take care of the boomerangs. And the first moment I knew that everything was going to go completely south is when I got in the car 3 days prior to the departure of my colleagues. Me and a coworker were driving to this fancy location in the north of France, and we were traveling by car. Yes, this is the fancy chateau that we visited with 100 plus colleagues. But we were driving by car, and the schedule for my colleagues said that it would take about 7 hours by bus. So we drove there 3 days prior in a relatively fast car. And the entire trip took us 7.5 hours. And that's the first moment when I realized, oh my God, they are never going to be here in time. And if this organization managed to F up something as simple as planning a trip from A to B with a bus, what other surprises are waiting for me at this chateau? Well, little did I know, everything that was possibly able to go wrong in that entire weekend went wrong. I'm going to sum up a couple of them. I'm a vegetarian, and everything I ate that weekend was couscous salad for breakfast, melon, that was a side dish to the breakfast, and then for lunch, couscous salad with baguette, and my dinner was, yeah, this is the lucky people who ate meat had sausages. But I was left with the couscous salad for 3 days in a row. The chef spoke no English. I was promised there would be an English-speaking person present at the chateau. My French is adequate, but limited still. So I had to negotiate with this giant French man, looked like he walked straight out of Ratatouille, about the options, the dietary options I had for my vegan colleagues or my lactose intolerant colleagues or my gluten-free colleagues. I think talking to my colleagues the last few days when I told them I was going to go here and talk about this fuck up with them, they all really assured me that it was still one of the most magical moments of their time at Boomerang. But for me, afterwards, when you rewind that videotape and you start looking at all of those moments where you knew, this is not going to go well. I should have checked this, or I should have checked that. I think for me it feels as a fuck up, because if you're going to let somebody else do it and they completely mess everything up, in the end, it's pretty hard to look at it as something successful. But I'm really happy that my colleagues were still entertained and really enjoyed that weekend. But for me, 6 hours of sleep in 3 nights, and couscous salad 3 days in a row. Yeah, it was pretty horrific. So the morale of this story is, if you're good at something, you better do it yourself. Thank you.
Maartje, come and join us. Thank you so much for that. That is crazy. One of my favourite parts of the story, which I'll share while you're running back to the table, is that the bus took about 13 and a half hours, and it was like a scene from that movie Speed, where you weren't allowed to stop, otherwise the engine cut off and it wouldn't go back on, and the toilet broke.
Yes, this is the fancy flyer we made before to get everybody excited for this fancy trip to a lovely chateau. But yeah, no, the bus. Oh my God! If you walk into the Boomerang office, well, like pre-COVID, and tap anyone on the shoulder and ask them about the bus to Chateau, they're either gonna like laugh really hard or start crying immediately.
Start crying or go, Maartje!
Yes, that fucking bus. Yeah,
oh my God.
yeah.
So anyway, I would have preferred to have been in your seat than on that bus. That's all I can say. 6 hours over 3 days or not.
Yes, yes, I can imagine.
That sounded a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're head of culture at an agency, an ad agency, which can be legendarily crazy. What does that entail, and how do you embrace failure? How do you embrace horror stories when creating and continuing and sustaining a Boomerang culture?
Well, I think it's safe to say that I've had at least a 1-hour conversation with everybody that works at Boomerang, so they know me as a person, and I'm really open about sharing my mistakes. So what we did about 2 weeks after we came back from the north of France is...
You slept for 2 weeks?
Yes, cried and slept. And we did a breakfast show with like croissants and lovely other French stuff. And
were toilets available?
There were toilets available, yes. And we just made a ginormous slideshow of all of the stuff they'd sent me, but also like screenshots with WhatsApps from colleagues that are cursing at me, like, what the fuck, where's the bus? We're here at this excursion, my canoe fell over, I'm cold, where, you know, like everything that went wrong. I just put the screenshots in the slides, and I thanked them for their patience and their love and support, always.
I would love to have seen those screenshots. That would have been quite the
I didn't bring them tonight because they're confidential.
Exercise.
Yeah,
I'm sure they are. I'm sure there's too many expletives as well in them. So, how do you make a safe space in the workplace? How do you embrace failure? How do you embrace horror stories? How do you make it okay that other people fuck up?
Well, I try to be involved, or at least paying attention to the bigger projects, or the projects that I know are under like big time pressure or super important to the organization. And then I try to just ask my colleagues every now and then, like, how's this going? How's everybody feeling? It's super hard when you're not in the same room, because usually my day would just be get a cup of coffee and I just do my rounds in the office floor, and I just look at people like, how you feeling? And then I ask them again if I feel like they might be lying. And then I just make a mental note, like this or that colleague looks a little bit stressed, and I check out the projects they're working on, and I just try to balance everything out, like behind the scenes. But now I only have a screen to work with, so that basically leaves me detached from my lovely family.
I don't know about everybody else, but I think it should now be compulsory that Maartje wears her Halloween hat on
I'm
Zoom,
taking this home.
on internal Zoom conversations.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much for sharing your story, Maartje. And I want to thank everybody for being open and honest, for being game to dress up and paint their faces and wear their hats, because apparently it's Halloween. Who knew? I wish somebody had told me. What have we learned? We've learned to embrace failure. We've learned that conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. We've learned that we shouldn't CC the entire company into every single email, no matter how cross and righteous we feel. Pass your maths exam, everybody. That's a basic, I believe. Pass your maths exam. And don't be overwhelmed by royalty. I think they're just normal people too. Hey, they just happen to have crowns. They have a Halloween outfit just like you do. They just happen to wear theirs every day. So listen, thank you so much, everyone. We want to thank Pakhuis de Zwijger, particularly Dimfy and team. You're always the best. You've got our back every time. I want to thank everybody in the audience that's tuned in. Without you, we're nothing. Nothing, I tell you. We're just talking in a vacuum. And I want to thank our speakers today. I want to thank Shay, Raja, Marcia, Kika, and Rachel. You've been great. And I hope everybody can learn something. I've certainly learned something tonight. Keep on talking. Stay safe. Stay curious, everybody. And we'll let you know when the next SheSays Amsterdam event is coming. I'm just going to wear this for the rest of my life. I particularly like the buckle. It's quite a Puritan look. I think it's the new me. So thank you, everyone. And also SheSays Amsterdam team. You're always a delight. So you've worked very hard and good shopping, frankly. Everybody, enjoy the evening. Happy October. Over and out.